Otieno and Ian Mutiso for the 4 persons. And with your guidance, before plea is taken, we would like to object to the registration or admission of the charges. So with your guidance, not particularly certain at what point to raise this.
It's already registered and we have a number.
But plea has not been taken yet.
So we cannot object to registration.
Well, I would be guided by the court in that. First is that the charge sheet does not disclose sufficient information to enable the accused persons to plead. Specifically, there's mentioned the first count of smoke grenades. Count 2, there is mention of explosive canisters. And in count 3, there's mention of explosive canisters. The court will note that there isn't any identifying information for any of the alleged smoke grenades or the firearm, is explosive canisters. In that instance, it is impossible for the 4 to sufficiently know what exactly they are being charged with. Secondly, I would like to invite the court to take into account, consider the context in which the prosecution brings these charges, being that the 4 were apprehended on the 8th of August in the context of participating in the peaceful and unarmed protests dubbed Nane Nane protests. So essentially, the prosecution is using these charges, the intended charges that is, to punish the 4 for exercising their constitutional right to peaceful and unarmed protest, the Article 37 of the Constitution. Secondly, the residence referred to as Muthaiga Gate number 44 in count 3 is the residence of one Jimmy Wanjigi'S. So the prosecution is using these intended charges, secondly, to punish the 4 for their perceived association with one Jimmy Wanjigi'S. In this regard, on the 8th of August 2024, the Inspector General of Police, and we would implore the court to take judicial notice of this, issued a press conference in which he stated expressly that the smoke grenades and explosive canisters referred to in this document were allegedly found in the residence of one Mr. Jimmy Wanjigi'S. The Inspector General did not link the 4 persons these so-called explosive canisters. He expressly stated that these were found in the residence of one Jimmy Wanjigi, that is at Muthaiga number 44, or in a vehicle in said residence, suggesting therefore that the investigation revolves around Jimmy Wanjigi and not the four persons. Additionally, we would request the court to take judicial notice, that the issue of the alleged explosive canisters and smoke grenades referred to by the prosecution in this document, the proposed charge sheet, is currently subject of a petition in the High Court, being petition E396 of 2024 before the Constitutional and Human Rights Division of the High Court. Justice Bahati Mumuya. That is Jimmy Wanjigi versus the Inspector General of Police, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Director of Criminal Investigations, wherein Jimmy Wanjigi intends to lay out how these alleged smoke grenades or explosive canisters were planted by the state in his residence. The reason why we request the court to take judicial notice of that is because it's important for the context to demonstrate that the four persons before you today are not connected to these so-called explosive devices. The intended investigation, if at all, targets one Jimmy Wanjigi, and this proposed charge sheet against the four is simply a pretext to persecute the four for their alleged or rather perceived association with one Jimmy Wanjigi. And considering that the main subject of this investigation, Mr. Jimmy Wanjigi, is already canvassing these issues before the High Court, it would, in our humble submission, be improper to charge the four. And lastly, Your Honor, the four persons were arrested on the 8th of August. They have been in custody for 8 days now. And 5 of those days, they were detained without lawful court orders. So, in summary, Your Honor, we submit that this charge sheet should not be registered because it doesn't, for all those reasons, and they should therefore be discharged under Section 89(5) of the Criminal Procedure Code. That would be all. Thank you.
Our application be water under the bridge. Your Honor, the file has, and the charge sheet has already been registered, and the same has been given a file number. That is, it is registered as E819 of 2024. And the second issue raised by counsel, the charge sheet and the description does not bring out the issues. Your Honor, the charge sheet is before you, and it is very clear on the items that were found in the accused person. I personally might put it to him that I did not see the same press conference, or perhaps I did not even have a TV. It is not judicial notice that everyone should have seen the press conference. That will maybe tell you what the contents of the press conference later. Your Honor, but going forward, just as Council has elaborated, he has brought up the issue that indeed there were some canisters, or he's tried to brought up that there were some smoke grenades that were gotten from somewhere. So actually the charge sheet is well understood by Council in regards to the description of the items that were recovered. Your Honor, pertaining to petition number 396 of 2024. Your Honor, you are yet to be told whether the four accused persons or the four intended accused persons are subject or parties to that matter before the court. Your Honor, the Council is laying too much emphasis on a party that is not even before this court, is not in this charge sheet. Your Honor, the said petition, you have not been provided by any stay orders regarding to prosecution. It Your Honor, we intend to have the prosecution during the hearing. We shall be calling experts. We shall demonstrate how these items that were found with the accused person are intended to be used to cause serious damage, not harm, to unspecified occasions, unspecified types, and for unspecified reasons. Your Honor, lastly, in regards to the issue regarding to criminal behavior, Your Honor, the Council is knowledgeable that such issues should be brought to the court as into that particular area. We are also where they can feel that there was some infringement of any kind, if at all, there was in regards to their regulations, they are not to be brought promptly to court. Your Honor, for those reasons, there is nothing that hinders this four accused person from taking the plea. And I would urge the court not to be swayed by the mention of certain individuals who are strangers in this matter, or are trying to be roped into this matter. We pray that the plea proceeds, and let justice, if at all he says that they have overwhelming reason to believe the charges will not stand, we have ample time to prove each other's side of their case as the prosecution and as the defense.
Detention without lawful order are in fact already subject of another constitutional petition in the High Court. That is number E412 of 2024, in which the four of them, Duncan, Obiambo, Calvin, Ochieng, Josiah Ugo, and Kennedy Ochieng, are the petitions. And as regards the context, as the prosecutor has mentioned, there is indeed a link between Muthaiga 44 and the protests, in that the two of the intended accused persons were trailed by police from the protests in the Central Business District to Muthaiga number 44. So the connection is not as remote as the prosecution would like you to believe. And as regards the items, Your Honor, as an analogy, if you were charged with possession of a firearm, the charge sheet ought to disclose what type of firearm it was. If it was a pistol, the make of the firearm, and the serial number of the firearm. This intended charge sheet simply says a firearm. It simply says an explosive device. It simply says a canister. So, in the end, it is impossible for the intended accused persons to know exactly what they were accused of having or possessing. It could, on a light note, be anything from a donut to a toilet. Thank you.
Raised by counsel appearing for the four accused person to the effect that plea should not be read to the accused persons today, and reasons have been given. I will answer the issues that have been raised one by one. On the period of detention, counsel has already stated that there is already a constitutional petition before the High Court on the period of detention, which states that the accused persons have been in custody from 8th of August to date. Therefore, I cannot comment on that, since the matter is already before another court, and the same will be covered. On the second issue as to whether the charge sheet discloses the offense, I have read through the charge sheet. The same gives a description of items that were recovered, which are smoke grenades and explosive canisters. I have also read at count number 3, which talks of a firearm, but then describes the same as an explosive canister. Therefore, I find that the same has already been described, and it will not be prejudicial if the charge sheet is read as it is. On the issue of the High Court petition, I'll also agree with the prosecution that the four accused persons are not party to the said petition. There is also no order of stay from the said court, barring this court from proceeding with the plea. The matter that is before this court has been separated from the one that is before the High Court. Therefore, I find that the prosecution have demonstrated that the four accused persons are placed properly before this court. More so, I also find that the issues that have been raised about the rights of the accused persons and how they were arrested are issues of fact that can be proved during the hearing of the case. Therefore, I find that the objection has no merit. We'll proceed with the plea. Members of the public. True or false? Duncan?
False.
Calvin?
False.
Kennedy?
False.
Josiah? False. Count 3. Your colleague being in possession of a firearm. Particulars on the 8th August 2024 at Muthaiga, gate number 44 within Tarili Sub-County in Nairobi County, with others not before court, without reasonable excuse, had in your possession of firearms, namely explosive canisters, in circumstances which raise reasonable presumption that the said firearm was intended to be used in a manner prejudicial to the public order. True or false, Duncan?
False.
Calvin?
False.
Kennedy?
False.
Josiah?
False.
In fact, at least two of them arrested from their homes in Soweto. But they are not the police.
Mhm.
Which provide that for the court representing bail also has considered the nature of the offense. Your Honor, you can see the charge sheet that has been read to the accused person. The level of sophistication of the said items. These are not your everyday firearms. Your Honor, these are explosives. The intention of the explosives, Your Honor, is to create maximum damage, destruction, and harm. Your Honor, you've also been treated by counsel for accused persons with the theater whereby they were throwing alleged big names to try and, if not intimidate me, probably intimidate the court. Your Honor, we will claim that stringent bond funds issued in conditions for non-interference and consent. And that the court has taken into consideration that the sophistication of this matter required proper investigation for them to be arraigned in court. Your Honor, the time period where the accused counsel is awaiting the custody, I'm informed that there are two miscellaneous applications that are before court, of which I'll be making relevant applications or informing the court on the position of the said applications which were custodial in nature. After the court gives direction in regards to the bail report.
Raised by the lecturer, future accused person will be released on a bond of 300,000 with a story for similar amount, cash bill of 100,000, and then
At the earliest, we intend to put all documentary evidence in application be provided.
Could you kindly read that out again?
100,000 cash bill
Like,
with one contact person each. Mention on 4th of September. That we signed. Number
2782 of 2024
Yes.
is the same was responsible for the
After holding them for 8 days without a charge, the 4 members of Bunge la Wananchi have been charged today with various offenses, which to us appear very contrived, accused of being in possession of explosive canisters, the details of them being smoke canisters or smoke grenades. The charge sheet does not sufficiently disclose the information, but the court has released them on a cash bail of 100,000 shillings each, which we are now processing. We'll be back in court on the 4th of September. From where we stand, this appears or looks, it's apparent that this is politically motivated, a political witch hunt. But we will, of course, for their participation in the Nane Nane protests and for their membership of Bunge la Wananchi, which is a grassroots organization, and what the state perceives as their association with Jimmy Wanjigi. So this is basically an attempt by the state to intimidate the 4 young men for exercising their constitutional rights to protest or to demonstrate peacefully and unarmed, and for their perceived association with Jimmy Wanjigi. It would, of course, be appropriate if anybody had a problem with Jimmy Wanjigi to go for him directly, and in any case there's a matter in court in that regard, as opposed to intimidating young Kenyans who were just going about their daily business and who happen to have been exercising their constitutional rights to demonstrate. So in the fullness of time, of course, it will become clear that these charges are contrived, they're malicious, and it's an abuse of power. So till then, we intend to demonstrate that. So till then, I would not want to comment on the court proceedings because I'm an officer of the court. It would be contemptuous of the court. So I think that would be all I can say at this point. Yeah, Dr. Whistle is my name. And in this matter with Willis Otieno, Ian Mutiso, and John Andati. And we will see it through to the end. Yeah, thank you.
Jina naitwa Josh Otieno. Actually tulikuja hapa asubuhi mapema kuangalia vile plea ya leo kwa hao watu 4 wenye walishikwa kutoka kwa Jimmy Wanjigi. Okay, our expectation ilikuwa hao watu tungefurahi kama wangetolewa free without any charges because they were innocent. But all in all, tumeheshimu maneno ya court vile wameamua kutoka na hiyo cash bill 100,000 each, but tutaheshimu, lakini hatujafurahia na hiyo maneno because mimi kama bradhangu sisi hatukuwa to expect hiyo pesa, tujue hata tutatoa wapi, but wacha tujaribu vile itapatikana alafu watoke. Thank you.
Kirum, I must thank the fourth fraternity for the lot you have done, but we as the people, we think that the state has infringed our fundamental rights because our colleagues have been detained incommunicado for all those days, and the law is very clear that whoever is arrested must be arraigned in court and take a plea. Then number 2, the law continue because peaceful demonstration is allowed within our constitution. So we must continue in demonstrating peacefully because the state of nation is not at the right place. And we are patriots. This is our country. And we are telling the state who is frustrating our colleagues to stop that because that is unconstitutional. We are very grateful with our lawyers who have done a lot. And we are hoping that our colleagues must be released today. Thank you very much.
Mimi kila mtu ananijua naitwa Nuru Okanga kutoka Bunge la Mwananchi. Kiangalia hiyo Bunge la Mwananchi kila mtu anaongea Kizungu, so mimi ndo nimeachwa na Kiswahili. But kuna pia watu wengi wanaelewa Kiswahili na wale wa Kizungu washike Kizungu. Nataka nishukuru kwanza mahakama kwa kuachilia mandugu zetu kwa bond. Si jambo la kawaida. Cash bill. Nataka niseme ya kwamba sisi kama Bunge la Mwananchi tuko hapa kwa sababu ya 1, 2, 3. Kila mtu anajua mambo yenye inaendelea katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Na nataka niseme ya kwamba hawa vijana walishikwa kwa sababu ya Jimmy Wanjigi. Nataka Jimmy Wanjigi atoke nje. Yeye ni bilionea. Kila mtu amepigwa 100. Hiyo 400 kwa Jimmy Wanjigi ni kama wembe. Hatutaki kusumbukana kwa Bunge la Mwananchi tukichanga pesa. Ninaomba Jimmy Wanjigi mahali alipo hii cash bill ni ukiwa kwa nyumba yako, tuma tu pesa kwa akaunti ya serikali au vijana waachiliwe, kwa sababu hao vijana wako na familia, wako na watoto. So sisi kama bunge la mwananchi tumeshukuru.
Lakini kupiga media kila wakati, media mpaka penye yafai media ikoe. Lakini na nyinyi na media kila time na media usipige ground. Ama hapa mnataka kuuziwa nini ndio mkuju mpige media hapa.
Makosa yetu ni
kama wananchi korudi wa nchi ama no.
Mimi nitaomba hivi. Mimi kama Nurokanga. Tunajua nchi yetu ya Kenya iko mahali pabaya. Na sisi kama bunge la mwananchi tunataka niseme ya kwamba nchi yetu ya Kenya sisi tuko demokrasi na lazima tufate demokrasi yetu. Tumeona vijana wameshikwa, hata mimi nika hapa na makesi mingi. Tumeona baba yetu ako ile side. Tunaomba zile kesi ambazo ziko kotini zetu kwa niaba yao viongozi ziondolewe. Tuanze safari mpya. So mimi sitaongea mengi, lakini ile ombi yetu ni kwamba serikali iache kuhangaisha watu wetu. Hiyo tunaweza omba serikali iwache kuhangaisha watu wetu, na hatutaki tena kitu kama hii happen. Vijana wamelala ndani, wamehangaika ndani, wamelala huko, ni jambo ngumu, na viongozi wetu wanalala kwa manyumba zao. Tumesikia uchungu. So tashukuru, tutaendelea kushukuru na tutaendelea kuongea. Thank you.